Thinking about it. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Obsessed live show. Today we're going to, like we like to do, push the envelope a little bit. We're going to have a talk to one very brave mama, Stephanie, who is the author of The Day My Vagina Broke. Now you're like going, how does a vagina break? Well, we're going to tell you. Hey Steph, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, good morning, Annette. It's so nice to see you and be able to talk with you today.
Oh, you're so welcome. Now, tell me, firstly, the cover of your book, The Day That My Vagina Broke, like how confronting is that to some people? Because we don't normally see vaginas on the front of a book, unless, of course, it's like in the middle of Penthouse.
Well, I think when you look at that, right, it's red and it's meant to be, so funny enough, when I Googled the color, what is brave, it came up with this red. So it wasn't meant to be as in your face, strikingly red at first. It was more to do with, the Bravemumma colors. And then when I kind of showed it to the publisher, he said, that's the perfect color because we really want that word to stick out. It's meant to be attention grabbing so that what we can do is start those conversations that are taboo and people typically shy away from. So I've had a lot of response from people saying, wow, that's it's something else. Like it makes some people blush, some people get shocked, and some people are like, yeah, that's awesome. So it's a mixed response. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that it would be because for so long, things particularly about women's bodies, but I guess even men's, if you look at the nicknames that we give our
Genitals.
Reproductive organs, we don't call a penis a penis. Yeah, we call them genitals. We call them a doodle or a wee-wee or something like that. And it's almost like we're embarrassed that we've got them.
Yeah, it is. Or we're embarrassed to let, I think more so, children use the meta language of what they are. We don't make up a nickname, cutesy name for our eye or our ear. It's just labeled as our anatomy as it is.
So how did it come about that your vagina got broken? Like what happened to you, and why was it so important for you to write this book?
Sure. I'm laughing because I think you can hear the reasons why in the background.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's a challenging time when you got kids at home.
Yes, it is. So I hope you can still
All
hear
right.
me. Okay.
This show
best.
is about real conversations.
And this is our real life. I've tried to prep them with bribes and little treats and a movie, but it is what it is. That's what parent life is about, isn't it? So just let me know if you can't actually hear me, though. I'll try and speak up. So how it came to be was that
I can hear you.
Perfect. It was as a result of my first birth with my eldest, and so in a nutshell, it's a 25-hour story condensed into 2 minutes. Basically, it was a very long, extended vaginal childbirth that resulted in the use of instruments, including a vacuum and forceps. So only much later after the fact, I found out it was the use of forceps that when they used them, it tore the muscle my pelvic floor muscle away from the bone, which then now leads to all of the pelvic floor organs that are typically held up by those muscles descend down the vaginal canal. So that's how it's broken. The organs can't stay up, they slide down and out the opening.
How common is that in childbirth?
I don't want to stat you because I hate it when people throw stats out because you can't get a general consensus on the statistics on this. The Australian Continence Foundation will say women throughout their lives who have experienced vaginal childbirth will 1 in 2. So it's 1 in 2. So our population of women is half of Australia, and half of those will experience some degree of prolapse. And I will like to add, it can also happen with heavy weightlifting or there are other factors. You can still have a prolapse during cesarean birth, but not to the same degree that we're talking about with me. So that stage 3 and 4 prolapse is specifically related to the use of forceps during vaginal birth.
Okay, so what's your book about? Is it your journey about what happened through childbirth and the resulting, pain and and the things that you've suffered? Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Sure. So it's certainly there is a chapter on the birth, and there is a trigger warning for anyone who may be pregnant. And some women don't want to hear about all aspects of birth because they've got in their mindset what they want to achieve. And so to respect that, I did put a trigger warning in for people where they can skip the whole chapter and it won't really make a huge difference if you're reading the whole book. The beginning of the book is my journey to motherhood, so how I even got to being pregnant, which took a long time, and there's talk of IVF and cancer treatments and things like that. There's obviously that one section of the actual birth, and then the rest of it is really the story of hope. So how do you go through an adverse how do you go through this adversity and come through the other end and try and be the best person you still can be?
Absolutely. What has been your experience through the medical system? Because, I mean, what can you do about a prolapsed pelvis?
So there's,
Is that the technical term?
Pelvic floor.
Pelvic floor.
Yeah. The pelvis is, I don't know anatomy. I'm no expert, but the pelvis, I think, is the bit that's around like the bone structure that supports the pelvic floor.
Yeah, I just showed I'm absolutely not an expert.
Neither am I. And so what I did find is that, excuse me 1 minute. Yes, you can. What I did find is that I had to navigate this and I felt very alone. So there really wasn't a lot of support. There was zero support from the hospital. It was very surface level. Oh, yeah, you're doing great. Off you go. Here's some Kegels. Do some pelvic floor, those little sharp lifts. Yep. Go and do those for a while and on you go. Be a great mum. That's basically it from the hospital. Yeah. So then when I kind of was in the weeks following and then the months following realizing that's not working, and it's also something that isn't, they kept saying to me, oh, it's normal, but thank you. I didn't feel normal. It wasn't normal that I couldn't walk. I didn't feel normal that I actually thought, embarrassingly enough, that they got it wrong and I was having twins and they left a baby in there. Because when I finally built up the courage to look down there, because all the stitching had come undone and whatnot, I was like, oh, I don't want to look there, but I think I'm going to have to. It looked like there was another baby's head crowning. That's what it looked like. And to a first-time mum, I was like, what's that pink thing? I think that's a baby. Are they crazy? They forgot something. But it wasn't. It was my bladder. The vaginal wall and the bladder kind of protruding out. So then I had to privately fund going and finding a women's health physio, and I probably went to about 3 or 4 before I found a really good one. And when you find a really good one, you kind of don't let them go. She's amazing. Her name's Kate, and she works at a local physiotherapy near where I live, and I know she's renowned for being amazing with pelvic floor. After seeing her for approximately 7 months of treatments and trialing different things and pessaries, she said, I'm so sorry, I have to refer you on. The extent of your damage is out of my realm. And so then she referred me on to a professor. Actually, I went to another clinic first, pelvic floor clinic, and they were very similar to the public hospital. And then I found a professor, urogynecologist, who deals with these women every single day, like me.
Is it just something that as women we kind of have to put up with, that it's, you know, just the way our anatomy is, and unfortunately this is what happens?
I think that's the consensus. I think that's the old school method of thinking, or school of thinking, is that, well, it's part of becoming a mum, right? You just get a bit of prolapse and then you go do some exercise and then you move on. But no, because we're not really talking about it a lot, people don't know the difference between having minor prolapse that can be fixed with physiotherapy. And I absolutely strongly believe in women's health physio after birth. But then when you get past exercises not doing anything, there's very little. There's very little information. There is very little support and very little help. So yeah, yeah. Sorry, it's like one of those things where I don't want to jump on my soapbox, but people don't understand it, you know?
I think there's a lot about women's health that's misunderstood or brushed aside because that's just kind of the way it is for women, and you've got to suck it up. Because I remember having my first child and afterwards feeling like not like off. There was something wrong, and I go to the doctors and they're going, "Yeah, you're just suffering from postnatal depression." And I'm
Baby
like,
blues.
yeah, baby blues. And I'm like going, no, there's something a lot more happening here. And I think I went to 4 doctors, and my son was 15 months old before a doctor said to me, "You know what? It sounds like you might have a thyroid problem." And it
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
15 months for someone to go, actually listen. And I just kept getting fobbed off and told that, you know, you're a new mum, you've just it's okay, it's all normal. You know, and you get the feeling that you're just complaining.
It actually messes with your psyche, doesn't it? Because it makes you then question, like, I'm pretty sure you were feeling the same way. It makes you question, am I really not feeling great, or am I just overreacting?
Yeah.
Should I just get on with it? Because maybe they're right. Because we trust our medical experts.
Yeah.
And it does make you question, going, so am I now mentally unstable because I don't feel right, but people are telling me I'm right. So which one is it? You get really confused with that's your own thought processes, and that in itself is very scary when you can't trust how you feel and what your gut is telling you, because the experts are not hearing you, not listening, and telling you otherwise. It's all normal. Like, that word normal is I just don't have it in my vocabulary on a typical day. I hate it.
We do, you're right. We put so much faith in the medical system, and, you know, hand on heart, thank goodness we have those incredibly intelligent and, you know, the searches for cures for things, and people who want to heal and go in and, you know, cure cancer and, you know, sew limbs and suture and like fix hearts and brains, and like I'm in awe of those people. But there seems to me sometimes there is a complacency when it's not something that is common, or it's common, and as we said, is something that's deemed a woman's problem. You know, the same as yeah, like the same with, like, I know with women who have endometriosis, and they front to the doctor and they say, "Doctor, yeah, my periods are really heavy. I'm in a lot of pain." And they go, "Well, you're meant to be, because periods, that's what they are." How do we combat that? Because, you know, for me as a woman, I don't want to go, "Oh, listen to me, I'm a poor little old woman, you know, like all my problems are big problems, and, you know, everyone should like kowtow to me and listen to me." I don't want that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. How do we get them to listen to us and understand that, you know what, we just want to be well?
I think it's about giving women the voice on knowing what to say. we don't know what to say. We don't know how to tell someone what is actually happening for us. I think we just, well, for me, I easily put on a mask. And so by the time I get to the doctors, I'm like, hi, how are you? Yeah, good. How are you? And you put on this almost like a brave face to say, I'm doing well. I'm kicking ass at this motherhood thing, rather than saying, I can't do this. I can't stand. I can't physically stand and walk for very long. It probably took me a little while I didn't know the words to say, because I couldn't explain something that I myself didn't understand. I didn't understand prolapse. I didn't understand what was happening to my body, because we are not taught enough about our own female anatomy, ever. So I still have conversations with women right now and say, your vulva is what you see. That is not your vagina. Because they say, oh, your vagina is broken, and they picture that porno style, labia thing broken. I'm like, no, that's not even your vagina. The vagina is the tube that you can't see. Nobody sees, no matter what you do, except for your doctor. But that's, in very rare circumstances. The rest of it's called your vulva. And they're like, what? What do you mean? So this is what I'm saying. Women don't understand their anatomy. And I'll put my hand up. I was one of those. I didn't even know that either. So if we don't even know how to label our parts, and we don't know how to talk about them, then how can we communicate to the doctor or to whoever who's caring for us to say, this is my issue, what can we do about it?
It's the ultimate empowerment, isn't it, to understand your body, to know how it feels, to know how it responds in different situations, so that you do know when something is wrong.
I think there's another element I'd like to add to that too, Annette, is that my gut tells me my midwifery-led care wasn't that they were not only listening to me, was that I actually think there's a massive systemic issue in the amount of their workload. They are so overworked, and they are seeing mum after birth after birth. So I'm pretty sure that when you are that busy, you almost need to compartmentalize. Yeah, that's just baby blues, Annette. Off you go. Yep, that's just you recovering from natural childbirth, Steph. Yep, off you go. And then because the next one's coming in, I'm trying to be fair and thinking, okay, so systemically, they don't have the hour to sit with us and talk, because as you would know from having conversations with people, you've got to ask the 5 whys before you actually get to the problem. So you're not feeling very well. Why? Because blah, 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 blah. Why? And then you actually are able to dig deep enough to go, oh, that's what it is. Okay. They don't have the time for that. It's 15-minute appointments with your GP. What is it, 10 to 15 minutes with your GP these days?
Yeah, 10 to 15, in and out.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And sometimes I find you're lucky if they look at you.
Correct. I will say I have an amazing GP who I have an amazing rapport with, and he gives me the time of day. He really listens, and he'll say at the end, are you sure that's everything you want to cover today? And generally I say yes, but then there have been times I'm like, actually, and then you open a new can of worms, which is why he's always running late, because he just does that. And I don't think, that's practiced everywhere. I'm just extremely lucky.
Yeah. How do we fix something like that? Because, there's so many of us and so few of them. Like, is it we need to invest more money into educating, allied health and medical training, so that it's more accessible and cost effective for people to do the training?
I would like to see women's health clinics, and that's not coming from a feminist protesting type of thought process. It's just I would love for women to be able to attend clinics where everyone who is trained there is trained from head to toe in women's anatomy, endometriosis, menopause, periods, childbirth, pregnancy, all the things that are very specific to women. They're my big ideas. I need to obviously the people to have something like that in place takes a long time and a process, a very well thought out process, because of course it costs money. But I think we need to first show the value of why we need something like this. And I'm talking to the bean counters above. I don't believe they're aware that it's 1 in 2 women suffer from prolapse, and it cripples them from their life to such an extent that if we were to look at precautionary treatments, rather than trying to look at after treatments, I'm pretty sure the money could just be shifted from here to here, because I know I've spent a lot of money on this in the last 4.5 years, and that's a mixture of Medicare and private funding. If we were to take that funding into broken women and having to try and help them and fix them and put it in the beginning into education and prevention, who wouldn't want that, right?
Well, it makes sense to you and I, but unfortunately, we're not the people in charge. And we live in a sickness society. We go to the doctor when we're sick, and for many of us, we don't think about those precautionary things that we can do so that we avoid getting sick. Look at the way we eat, lack of exercise, the amount of time. Yeah, I sat on my bum so long yesterday that it hurt. And it's
gosh.
and there's a lot of bum there to hurt. So I did a really good job. So Steph, tell us a little bit about Bravemumma and what you do there and how that's helping to empower women.
Well, the person you see today is certainly not the person that I was before I wrote this book. So in no way in the world would I want to have something like the word vagina and my name on a front cover before this. My husband and I actually, we really didn't tell anyone this for a good 3.5 years. We were extremely private and we didn't tell anyone. So maybe a very, very close family, my family, maybe 2 or 3 people might have known a little bit. I mean, his parents didn't even really know until this year. And so to do this, I had to be really brave. I felt extremely vulnerable, and it was probably during the process I went over to an author's academy with Andrew Griffiths, and I thought I was going over just to do a bit of a brain and heart dump, put it in a diary and stash it away just so I could move on. I knew I didn't have resolve. There were lots of different avenues which I talk about in the book, including a lawsuit and then the possible surgery to get repaired, which all came to no avail. So then I felt very, 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 very lost. And so I knew I had to try and heal at some point somehow. And I thought, well, if I just write it down, then I can move on. When I was with Andrew and that class that year, I started writing it, and I think I pretty much cried for the first whole night as I'm writing. So the words are coming out, the tears are coming out just as much, and I was just like, oh, I really needed this. I really needed this. So I'd left the academy with chapter 1 written, and I was like, I'm on a mission now. On the way home from that, I thought, well, I need to be able to share this with people who, like me, have said nothing. So we live in silence. We are not counted in statistics. We are not recognised. It's a very silent and invisible disability. And so I thought, I've got to be brave here. And so I just was thinking of names, and I've actually got the piece of paper where I doodled a couple of them down, and Mama is my maternal grandmother's name. So she was always too young to be a nana or a grandma, and so she was Mama. So I was like, all right, in her honour, I'll check with my mum if it's okay first. And Mum said yep. So I put Brave and Mama together, and then I just felt like it was a good fit. Well, typically, sorry. Typically I would ask everyone's opinion, but I was like, no, that's what it is. I just had this innate thought that I'm like, no, I want to be that. And then I want to be able to be brave enough to share this story with everyone in our close circle and beyond, so that it doesn't happen to other women. My husband and I thought we were very, very clever, very educated. We knew all about childbirth because we went to the classes and we read all the books and we knew everything, but we knew nothing Nothing. We had no clue. And I think because of that, we felt very blindsided. I don't want other women to feel blindsided like we did. And I'm certainly not going to let this happen to my girl. So I think I've got to start something to make the right changes at the right time in the right places.
So Bravemumma is really about kind of like smashing those taboo topics and talking about what your anatomy is and which bit's your vulva and which bit's your vagina and, and things that are normal and things that are not normal and when you should ask questions and when you should push. Because it strikes me that even though we've got all of these fantastic tools that we can communicate, we're not communicating about the right things.
Well, or we are, but underground. So Bravemumma is the face of making way for change in a very safe, gentle way where people can go, oh, okay, that's what it is. So the Bravemumma online platform is very it's a bit funny because I'll tell things that my kids did. Like today, my son came out and said, Mummy, I washed my hands. I said, where? Knowing that he couldn't reach a tap, he said, in the toilet.
Well, that's an A for inventive.
So I share those funny moments of motherhood and parenting and, if I write a blog post. But underground, there is a private support group for women living with prolapse, and that's where all the real conversations are had in a very private, safe space. I would love for that to be able to be something that is more open for everyone to see, but women still don't feel comfortable with that. So until we do, then it just stays in a nice supportive group.
Is that discomfort that we have sharing these really personal stories, does that come from a fear of being judged or a fear of being ridiculed?
There is a whole chapter in my book called The Judgment Files. And embarrassed. And because as kids, we were never allowed to talk about it. I mean, we tell kids to cover their private parts from pretty much my son's now 3. So we say you have to put underpants on. We don't want people to see your genitalia because of that nasty world that we live in where things are not right when it comes to children and sexual, all of that stuff. It's like that line is very much blurred. So we teach kids from a very young age to not talk about it, to not talk about their genitals, to not show people. It's a very private thing. And I think as adults, that stays with us. Ultimately, it's still something that's very private and taboo.
Oh, it's crazy. So what other taboo topics? I mean, we've only got a few minutes left and we could probably have a show on each taboo topic. What other taboos do we need to smash around women's health so that
for sure?
Yeah, because I think there's so much that we hold back, and I would imagine there are a lot of women who are suffering in silence.
Yes.
Because they feel that they should be braver, they should be stronger. They're really just complaining and whinging, and who wants to be the Karen whinging about their vagina sticking out of their bits?
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's exactly right.
How do we encourage more women to speak up?
Well, from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is just destigmatize it in small chunks. So that's starting even just within my family. So my dad bought a copy of my book. Love him.
On your dad.
So did my mom. But I'm talking about that different gender exchange. Like, of course, you expect your mum, but your dad, and when I've said the word vagina, he's blushing less and less now, which is amazing. So I think that's where you start. You start within your inner circle, your trusted circle of loved ones. And the way I've been able to do that is to sit down over a pot of tea. So we're just really having those conversations at the dinner table that you were never allowed to have before. Start there and then kind of work up. So I feel like the more you talk about it, the less and less it becomes, what's that word I'm trying to think of? Not destigmatizes? Is that what I'm trying to think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
you initially have that, oh my God, feeling when you see that cover, but then after a while, when it's on your bookshelf or whatever, it becomes less and less scary. And I used to be scared of saying it. I used to be scared. I mean, look, I wouldn't look down there, and I'm a female, but I wouldn't look at my own body parts. It just took a long time.
I'm going to find a way today to use a vagina in a sentence while I'm out in public. I'll tell you what happens.
Because they do. People will either go, oh, I've just got to go over here. Yeah. Oh, my phone's ringing.
I'm going to go. We're going to look at a car today, so I might use it while we're talking to the car salesman. That's amusing me already.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm just thinking of the things you could say to him. But I don't want to torment the poor man, because that's not what it's all about. But you could easily say, yeah, I think my vagina likes this. We'll take it.
I'll report back to you. Steph, if people want to connect with you, reach out for your support and to be part of the group, how do they do that?
Sure, there's a couple of ways. We've got bravemumma.com, which is the website's got all the info about the book, the journey. It's also got a blog there. Those blogs are quite good because they're smashing the taboos. There's a good one about periods in there at the moment. There's one about feet and fannies. It's all the words that people don't usually like to say out loud. And then there will also be a link to the online Women Living with Pelvic Organ Prolapse support group. So people can apply to be, not apply, what's the word? Request to be a member. But you have to be a woman, and you have to be living with prolapse, and the questions are quite vetted because of the protection we want to give women in that community and support group. So say, for example, we had someone in there who didn't have prolapse. She was a woman, but she had a different agenda, and she had to go. Like, she didn't cause any issue or anything, and she just wanted to kind of watch and see what women were talking about. But it's not the space. Go and do it somewhere else. We are very much, we're here to support women who have prolapse and are living with it every day.
Yeah, this isn't a spectator sport. This is a very valid, educational, taboo smashing mission that you're on, isn't it, Steph? You want women to feel comfortable with their bodies and empowered enough to say, this isn't right, I need help, and to say to the powers that be, this isn't right, we can do this better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you are one brave mama to me, Steph Thompson, and I appreciate your time. And if anybody would like to check out Brave Mumma, I'll pop the details in the comment box. Now, Steph is not a business. She's not a not-for-profit. She is a woman on a mission and an obsessed live. This is what we love to support. So, Steph, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Annette. It's been really lovely to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Keep fighting the good fight.
Always. Thanks, Annette. Bye.